Yo, what's going on, internets? Thank you for coming back. Today we're getting into walls and how do I find walls for my public art projects and sort of just the murals that I do, because one of the most common questions that I get is detour when I go into my DMs. How do you find walls? And that is something that is not really taught in school. It's something that you sort of just have to learn on the fly. And I've been learning from friends and sort of stuff I've been doing. So that's what we're going to get into today. But first, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button and hit that notification button as well. So walls. So there are common sort of, I guess, ways of me getting work when it comes to the street art. And that's basically through commission. That's when a business or a developer or someone sort of comes to me and says, hey, I saw your work, I saw your website, I saw your portfolio, and I want you to come to our business and our space and actually do some public art project or a mural or something like that. I do that all the time. That is what sort of brings in most of my income. Actually, so that is a huge part of my practice. And then there are open calls. Open calls are basically when you apply for sort of an opportunity. So let's say a festival or the city has an open call for a wall that they want painted, and they want to, find a bunch of artists. So you submit your work to them and they pick your work, and then now you're working on a public art project. So that's a great way that I sort of find different opportunities as well, is through that sort of whole open submission, open call process. The third way I get a lot of walls, or just like I'm able to do a lot of street art projects, is through self-initiated sort of, activities or projects that I sort of bring about. That means no one's coming to me at all. I'm actually going out there and I'm searching for a wall. I'm searching for a space in my local neighborhood or even anywhere that I'm at, and I'm sort of self-initiating a project. I'm seeing a wall and I'm saying, I see my work on there, or I see some type of work on there, and I figure out, okay, how do I make this happen? So the self-initiated projects are the projects that you have to go through at the beginning when you're sort of trying to figure out how to do more of these public art projects, because that will sort of build that portfolio that you have. And then people will start wanting to commission you, and you'll start getting accepted more to these open calls. But the self-initiated projects are the ones that I do the most. I still do the most. So 90% of my murals that you see around town or just around different areas are self-initiated. One of the things about the self-initiated projects is that you're probably going to have to sort of self-fund as well, because you're sort of, you're trying to create the project yourself. So you have to figure out how to fund it. Maybe it's your own funds, maybe, you have extra paint, or it could be, you're finding a funder or sort of a Kickstarter that could help fund the project. So buying equipment or buying paint for you to use. One of the things I really like about the self-initiated project when it comes to the walls and street art is that you're able to practice and experiment and sort of get exposures on the walls that you want, because you're the one sort of self-initiating it. They're not coming to you with a pre-planned sort of idea or concept or a wall. It's like you're finding the wall and you have this vision and you're able to experiment. So a lot of the walls that I do myself or I self-fund, I'm sort of like figuring out how can I push my own practice or own sort of style and do things that, I may not want to do on a wall that someone commissions me. Because when they're commissioning me for a wall, they see previous work that they want the wall to look like, whereas my self-initiated project, it could be anything and everything. So how do I get these self-initiated projects, these walls that you see everywhere? And the number one way I do that is by asking. And that is a art in itself. You have to play that numbers game. The worst thing that they can say is no, and you're gonna get a lot of no's. You have to think about a business, because when you're asking someone who owns a building or who owns a business, you gotta put yourself in their shoes and say, okay, this artist is coming to me, how much is this gonna cost my business? Or how is this artwork going to add value to my business? So you have to really think about, when you're asking someone to use their space, exactly how will it impact their business, their space, their building, their wall, whatever. So asking is the way I get a lot of the walls are the spaces that I'm able to paint on, but there's sort of like an art in asking sort of, how do I increase my chances of them saying yes? So think of it as a numbers game. If you go out and you find 10 different walls that you want to paint and you ask the owners, you're likely to have 3 of them sort of interested, or maybe 5 interested, and then you're able to actually do 2 of them. So out of the 10 that you did, or you found and you asked the owner or the business owner about painting on their wall, maybe 2 of them will say yes and actually sort of execute sort of like an agreement for you to paint their space or give you permission to paint their space. So that's like a 20% sort of success rate, which is fine. That's great. So think about if you do 100 different spaces, that means you're going to get 20 different spaces. And it gets easier as people start to recognize your work around town and start to jive with your style. And they say, hey, I see in your style here. Yeah, you can paint my wall because I like your work and everything. So it starts to become easier the more that you're out there painting and people see your work around town. So when you find the space, one of the things is you have to figure out who to ask. So that's sort of an art in itself too. Doing the research, you have to figure out, okay, is this wall public property, which is through the city or the state or the county, whoever? It may be like under a bridge, and it could be the Department of Transportation for fill in the blank city, or it may be the Parks and Rec department of this city or state. So you have to figure out who owns that property. So doing the research is another form of art when it comes to sort of the idea of finding walls to paint or to do art projects on. A recent project that I did, I had to sort of figure out who owns the lot because it was sort of abandoned, and figure out, okay, this developer owns a lot, where can I contact them? And then how do I ask them to use their space for a project I want to do? So you got to figure out who to ask. And once you figure out who to ask, then you have to figure out how do I get them to visualize my idea. So everything from proposals to mock-ups to sort of your website to Instagram, your contact. How do I get them to visualize my work on their space? The better you can do that, help them visualize your work on their space, the easier it is for them to sort of make a decision. So a lot of the artists that you see, on Instagram and Pinterest and sort of like coming across your feed that you really like, that do really big work, a lot of them have the same mindset as well. They have projects, commission projects that bring in income, and they also have the projects that they just want to do, on their own. Maybe they're self-funding, or maybe they have sponsors that will help them buy material. I have Red Bull help me out all the time. So figuring out how to fund projects, you'll start to get into the mindset of, okay, how do I get my paints paid for? How do I get my lift paid for? How do I get, sort of like all this equipment sort of funded? So you're going to start to learn about that as you sort of get experience doing it. But first you have to actually go out there and ask for your first wall. And then once you get that no, and you come back and you get another no, and then you come back, you get another no, and you come back and get that yes, that's going to give you that sort of encouragement to keep going out there, because like I said, you're going to get those no's. The worst thing they can say is no. At best, they can say, yes, I want to help you out and help fund you. So for homework, what I want you to do is go out there, find 10 spaces or walls you want to add artwork to, and do the research, figure out who you need to talk to give permission, and then go out there and ask. And if you get a yes, work on that project. If you get all no's, find another 10 walls and repeat. And that's going to be how you get started. So hopefully that demystifies a lot of the mystery behind how do I get spaces, how do I get walls for my mural projects and sort of other public art projects. So like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next week. Peace.